Hello everyone, I'm Victoria and welcome to Black Cat Crimes, where we talk about missing people. I'm bringing you a story that hasn't been reported on much beyond just giving a few details and asking for people in St. Paul, Minnesota to be on the lookout for 49-year-old Brenda Holmes. In fact, I wouldn't be able to tell you much about Brenda or her disappearance at all if not for her daughter Lexis Holmes, who was gracious enough to take some time to talk to me and tell me more about her mom and what happened on July 5th, 2025. On Saturday, July 5th, Brenda Holmes met up with her sons in Wicah Happy Regional Park, which was formerly named Mounds Park. It still does seem to be called Mounds Park locally, so you may see both names in relation to Brenda's disappearance. Brenda arrived to see her sons with her on and off again boyfriend, Timothy Craig, who goes by Tim. While there, Brenda got her debit card back from one of her sons because she planned to go grab a quick drink, maybe some snacks, and then her and Tim would be right back. But Brenda and Tim never came back. At first, that wasn't a huge worry. You know, sometimes things change and maybe they just forgot to let the boys know that they wouldn't be back. At that time, Brenda didn't have a cell phone with her. One of her sons had recently lost his phone and Brenda had loaned hers to him. So at that time, she just didn't have a cell phone on her. Like I said, at first there wasn't an immediate worry. But as a few days passed and the boys didn't hear from her, and eventually they reached out to Lexis and realized that Lexis also hadn't heard from their mom, they thought that they probably needed to report their mom missing. Lexis pushed one of her brothers to go file the missing persons report because as they all talked to each other, they realized that none of them had heard from their mom recently. They knew they needed to file a missing persons report because this was just completely out of character for Brenda. She's close to her children and even helps to take care of other family members' children as well. So when no one had heard from her, they knew something had to be wrong, because Brenda has never just disappeared from everybody's life like this. Brenda was reported missing to the St. Paul Police Department, and her kids made sure to share some really essential information with the police. Tim has a history of physical abuse toward Brenda. The reason Brenda and Tim's relationship had been so on and off was this physical abuse. She had reported his abuse to police a few times and even pressed charges. He has been arrested and convicted for a handful of crimes, and his stints in jail based on these attacks would lead to the end of their relationship. They would break up while he was gone. I want to pause here and give a quick note. I am going to talk through some of Tim's convictions and what's able to be accessed publicly through court records don't actually name Brenda as a victim for privacy reasons, obviously. But based on my conversation with Lexis and the general time period of their relationship, they do correlate to the dates in the court records. And Lexis had talked me through some of these crimes, convictions, and different court records. So I know that these are specifically applying to Brenda. On December 15th of 2024, Tim attacked Brenda. He threatened her and physically assaulted her, even strangled her. He was arrested and originally held without bail while he was charged with threats of violence and domestic assault by strangulation, both of which are felonies. He was also charged with a gross misdemeanor for violating a no-contact order that was in place from the last time he was convicted of harming Brenda. On January 10th, 2025, he was convicted of all three of these charges. And for some reason, after he was convicted of all three of these crimes and had proven that he couldn't follow a no-contact order, he was let out by the courts on a $10,000 bond while he awaited sentencing. Looking through the court records, it seems like there were a few hearings that were set up and he just didn't show up to them, which led to bench warrants being issued for his arrest, and they were resolved by his arrest. But instead of sentencing him or holding him, the courts would let him back out on another bond. And it happened again. I don't understand. During the last time Tim was in custody, Brenda had been staying with Lexis. Lexis told me she was working on helping her mom try to find her own place to live and trying to get back on her feet. But when Tim was released again, unfortunately, Brenda went back to him. Despite the fact that there was a domestic no-contact order in place, Tim was able to convince Brenda to go back to him. And this is a prime example of why the courts need to take domestic violence convictions much more seriously than they do. Unfortunately, relationships with domestic violence can be very hard for people to leave. Between the manipulation and control of the abuser and the fear and often hope that it'll get better again from the victim, there's just too much going on for someone to be able to get out easily. On average, it can take a victim of domestic violence 7 tries to actually successfully leave a relationship. And unfortunately, the time directly after someone has left that relationship is the most dangerous time. When the abuser feels like they're losing control of the victim, that is the most dangerous time for a victim of a domestic violence relationship, which can often make it nearly impossible for someone to get out. There are a lot of reasons. Brenda may have gone back to Tim, but Lexis told me her mom absolutely deserves better. And she's right. No one deserves the type of violence in their relationship that Brenda was experiencing. Tim was supposed to appear in court on May 20th, but he didn't, according to court records. So a bench warrant was issued for his arrest on May 21st. And despite the fact that this man was convicted of violent charges and failed to show up to a sentencing hearing, he's just been out and about for the past 2 months. I genuinely do not understand why warrants are going to be issued in these situations if police aren't going to go after the people that should be brought in. It's one thing if it's a civil or non-violent offense that a bench warrant's been issued for, but an actual violent offense awaiting sentencing, yeah, you need to go pick that dude up. Additionally, the domestic no contact order was reissued on May 21st, and it will be in place until December of 2025. I bring all this up because I personally believe that Tim's past behavior shows that he could be a clear and present danger to Brenda's current well-being. A large part of Lexis's worry when she heard that nobody had heard from her mom was not only that her mom's just never done anything like this, it's totally out of character for her, but additionally, on the night of July 4th, Brenda had called Lexis to tell her that allegedly Tim had strangled her that night. It's hard not to go to worst case scenario when you know that an alleged attack took place by the last person who you believe saw your mom the very night before she went missing. When Brenda had called Lexis told her mom that she absolutely needed to call the police and file charges. But Brenda didn't do this. Maybe she didn't get the chance to. Maybe she just decided against it. Or maybe she worried about retaliation if she did file charges. For whatever reason, though, a police report was not filed by Brenda for the alleged strangulation. Before her disappearance on July 5th, Brenda and Tim had been staying together in a hotel in Maplewood. After her disappearance, though, Tim left this hotel room. In fact, neither the police nor Brenda's family have been able to get a hold of or find Tim since July 5th. He hasn't been reported missing, though. There could be a few reasons for that. One, maybe no one close to him realizes he's missing, or they're not reporting him missing because they've heard from him. Two, there's evidence to believe that Tim has either tried to or managed to book 2 hotel rooms. This may have led police to believe that he's not missing, rather just avoiding them, either because he does have an active arrest warrant or because he is possibly involved in something that happened to Brenda and just doesn't want to talk to anybody. And 3, while Brenda's children have been in the community out searching for their mom and asking people if they've seen her or Tim, people have actually said that they've seen Tim, but no one's seen Brenda. They haven't been able to confirm these sightings, but they have passed all of these tips along to police. Police and Brenda's family absolutely do just want to talk to Tim. They want to know what he may know about her disappearance and what may have happened to Brenda. Brenda's children have been searching tirelessly for their mother the last few weeks and trying to find out whatever information they can. They've been printing and handing out flyers. They've been talking to everyone they can and tracking whatever they can to see if they can find their mom. One way they've had some luck is with the debit card that Brenda got back from her sons on July 5th. I'm filming this video on July 23rd, and I just want to note that because I'm going to start talking through some weeks and dates and things like that. Starting last week, someone tried to change the PIN on Brenda's debit card. The first time it happened, Lexis and her brothers decided against reporting the card and continued to let whoever was trying to use it or change the PIN do what they were going to do, and they just let police know that there was activity on the card. And then it happened the second time. Someone tried to change the PIN again, and police and Brenda's family have continued closely tracking this card in case there's any sort of movement. And that finally did happen. On the day I talked to Lexis on July 21st, the card was used at 12:21 p.m. They know the card was used to purchase food, but they're unable to see the exact location of where it was used. Police are able to see where the card is used, though. Lexis's brother called over and over to the number that they were given for the investigator on their mom's case, but no one was answering. They left voicemails and even ended up calling the tip line just to try to get through, and still they weren't getting a call back. As of 7:30 that night, so 7 hours after the card was used, no one had called them back. And they were just so frustrated and heartbroken. They felt like they finally had this tip, this lead that police could go look into, and they weren't getting the immediate response that should have been happening. Honestly, time is of the essence in these situations, not only for things like security footage, because you don't know how often places are taping over or not holding on to the data for that footage. Or, maybe they're still there. Maybe they're still in the area. If you can go to that place quickly, maybe you can see who's using the card and still track them down relatively easily. Time is of the essence in these situations, and Lexis and her brothers just felt let down in that instance. Lexis and her brothers just want to know if it was their mom using the card or not. Now, it has been a few days, so I'm hoping they've heard back from the detective or the investigator, and they know more than I know now. But Lexis just talked about that she just wanted to know if her mom was safe. They just want to know if it's their mom who used the debit card. And if it's not their mom, who is it? And what do they know about where their mom is? I specifically asked Lexis if this is something Brenda had ever done before. Has she ever just left and not been in contact with everyone for a few weeks? And the answer was a very firm no. It's never something that her mom has done before, and Lexis said there's no way that Brenda would just leave and not be in contact with anyone in her life, which is why they are so worried. For their mom not to be in contact with them for nearly 3 weeks now, they just know something has to be wrong. Is she sick or hurt? Is someone keeping her from contacting them? Has something worse happened? On July 15th, Brenda's case was updated to a missing and endangered persons case. Investigators were also saying at this point that they considered her disappearance suspicious. Lexis told me how lost she and her family feel. They desperately want to find their mom and feel like they're doing all they can with very little support from police. She said they hardly hear from them, and she really feels like they're just not taking her mother's disappearance as seriously as they should be. And it should be taken very seriously. Again, the man Brenda was last known to be with has been convicted of assaulting her before and allegedly strangled her the very night before she went missing. Now, I'm not saying that Tim has anything to do with it, and remember, there's no evidence of what has happened to Brenda or where she may be, but the situation still calls for there to be urgency, for there to be worry. The lack of urgency, given the circumstances of Brenda's disappearance, given the suspicious nature of it, is horrible. I mean, this is the exact opposite of what the situation calls for. And because Brenda's disappearance is so recent, and it seems like, at least to Brenda's family and to the public, like police aren't making very much progress yet, that's really all I know. Lexis told me everything she could think of, and I think every bit of it is so important to helping get Brenda's story out there and helping to understand the urgency of the situation and for people to know what they need to be looking for. Most reporting isn't sharing all of these details that show how critical it is to be on the lookout for Brenda. All that's really being reported on is a quick blurb about Brenda being missing and that it's suspicious, and that's it. They're not even giving features that could be very distinctive and identifying Brenda if you do see her, such as tattoos. So I do encourage reporters, especially in St. Paul or Minnesota in general, to start reporting on the full story of Brenda's disappearance. And for all of you watching, especially if you're in Minnesota, please keep an eye out for Brenda. She's a 49-year-old black woman who stands at 5'2" and weighs approximately 250 pounds. Her hair was in blue and black braids at the time she went missing. This is a recent picture of her with that hairstyle. She also has brown eyes. She has several tattoos, the name Jason on her neck, praying hands on her left arm, the name Rodney on her right arm, and Africa on her leg. She also has a nose and eyebrow piercing. On July 5th, she was last seen wearing a black bonnet, a black t-shirt, camo leggings, black boots, a black crossbody bag, and a medium pink bag. I don't have a physical description of Tim to share, but I am sharing a picture of him on screen now. If you see either Brenda or Tim, or if you have any information about where Brenda may be, what may have happened to her, where Tim may be, please call the St. Paul Police Department. Their number is 651-291-1111, or you can call 911. I want to end this video by telling you about Brenda herself. Lexis spoke so lovingly about her mom. She told me that Brenda is just the sweetest person ever. She's so caring and she's always down to help anyone. Brenda has a big personality. She's so fun and she can just make you laugh. Lexis talked about how her mom has the biggest heart and it's just so pure. For Lexis, the last few weeks have been unimaginable. She talked about how she's just been crying and crying and she doesn't know what to do without her mom. All Lexis and her brothers want is to bring their mom home. They desperately need her back. You can help by sharing flyers about Brenda's disappearance, or even sharing this video could be helpful. If you live anywhere, keep an eye out, but especially if you live in Minnesota, that's where Tim seems to still be, and hopefully Brenda still is. So keep your eyes open and report it if you see anything. And especially if you know anything, no matter how small the detail is, no matter how minuscule the tip may seem, if you know something, please call the St. Paul Police Department. Okay, that's all I have for you for now. I'm glad that I can bring you Brenda's story and talk about her disappearance because there was just so little reporting on it, and it took me 2 seconds of looking at the flyers that Lexis and her family were sharing to see that there was more to the story and we needed to really talk about this. So thank you so much for watching. Stay safe, and I'll see you next time. Bye.